Amazing. And so I'm super happy that you're here today. I'm introducing Romany. You are based in the UK, and you are the first and only woman, just let me get this right, to ever win the World Magic Awards in Las Vegas. And that's magic.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to, and there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes on in the middle, but then you also wrote your story, and it's called Spun Into Gold.
Yeah.
And at the end of most episodes, I ask my guests to please recommend a book or a reading, a poem, a song, or a course. And so we're just starting with that part. So we are going to be recommending your book today on the show.
Great. Oh, fantastic. Thank you,
Cool.
Tracy. It's funny. In this part of my life, the thing that gives me the most joy at the moment is people reading my book. And you know when something is right, when it gives you joy.
Yes.
And so when someone goes, I've got your book, I read your book, I'm like, oh, and my heart opens. And so I feel like I'm on the right track. So thank you so much to get new readers, especially in New Zealand, because Wendy has been telling her clients all about my book. So we've got quite a lot of New Zealanders all reading the book, and it travels all the way from wherever they print the book, all the way to New Zealand.
Well, my sister read it. So she's like, you've got to check this out. And I'm like, sort of I've just picked it up and I'm just going to start making my way through it, because every time I ask someone to recommend a book, they recommend a book and I get the book, and then I'm like, I'm now behind on my books.
I know. I've got a list.
It's the best thing, especially if you love reading. So I'm going to switch myself off and let you share your incredibly inspiring story because we have viewers and listeners. We're on YouTube and we're on like 15 podcasts. So please take the floor. Let's go.
Okay, so shall I basically let's have a pre-COVID snapshot. I was actually in Fiji and I was doing a show. It ended up being on the side of the ocean to 150 women who were at the ultimate girl retreats. And Elizabeth Gilbert was there. So Elizabeth Gilbert from Eat, Pray, Love and her agent from New York. And the next morning, I didn't sleep at all because I was so excited. But the next morning I did my new keynote speech to these women, and it was amazing. And then that was a dream came true. And I met Elizabeth Gilbert. And if you read my book, you'll know why that's important. But then I came back to England and I had a whole year ahead of what I do, which was to be a headline act on seaborne cruise ships, which go around the world. And I'd do 2 shows a week on that and hop on and off all the time. And then I would MC events and do private parties and basically have a very, very eclectic year of lots of travel. I was always on a plane, probably not good for global warming, but I've made up for it this year. And this, what I was going to be doing this year was my life's dream since I was a little girl. Of course, I didn't know that I was going to be a magician. When people said, what do you want to be? I was like, I want to be Judy Garland. But what I wanted, because I watched all those wonderful films with Judy Garland and Sid Charisse and Liza Minnelli and Gene Kelly and all those, I wanted to be singing and dancing on a stage in the spotlight. And then more than anything, I wanted to put on my makeup in the mirror with the lights around it, with the dressing room, with my star on the door, and preferably people bringing me flowers. That was the dream.
Yeah. And we had a quick catch up earlier and we talked about our connection of how we both played Louise
in Carousel.
So isn't it incredible? And so everything you're talking about right now, I'm feeling that.
Yeah. So it's so many little girls' dreams. You either got horses or you got ballet shoes. And my mother, if you can put it in context, my mother was brought up in the British Second World War. She was a refugee, i.e. they sent the children off to, they weren't called refugees, they were called something else, but they sent the children off to the country, and she didn't get a very good education and she left school at 14. And so when I was a stage-fright little girl, she wanted to give me everything. So I went to dancing lessons, drama lessons, piano lessons, singing lessons, everything. And so I was going to be a star. But when I was 15, and this was where my life changed really. When I was 15, I got the part of Louise in Carousel, which has got a ballet. And I've always been, I'm 10.5 stone, which I don't know what it is in pounds. It's 65 kilos. And I'm 5'5". So I'm sort of the very average build. I'm strong. I'm, not good for a ballerina. It's just not. And so at the age of 15, I stopped eating. I didn't stop eating. I started eating, I remember, 20 satsumas a day, because if you take the time to peel them very slowly. So there I am, I'm 15, I'm finally thin. And for Louise, I had cheekbones, I had shoulder bones, and I was this ballet looking person that I'd always dreamt of. But of course, as we know, as women and maybe men, the moment after you've been on a crash diet, the moment you start eating again, poof, it all goes back on. And for me, more went on. And I think at the age of 17, I was probably about 11 stone, a stone more than I ever been in my life. And suddenly I can't dance anymore, because we were wearing those lycra leotards in those times. And I had suddenly a cracking pair of bosoms. And, you know, it's just not ballet.
Yeah. Oh, I can completely appreciate. So as you're talking about this, and I think that a lot of listeners and viewers will also relate. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, all of us as little girls that wanted to be on stage had some kind of eating disorder, but there have been things that have happened in all of our lives that we can relate to the pressure of, you know, eating versus not eating, versus wear this size 10 versus be happy in size 14. So I feel like a lot of people can really relate to what you're talking about. And you've just brought something up in me, if you don't mind me sharing. So I didn't have the eating issues when I was a teenager dancing, and this is our similarity. We both, you know, danced on stage as teenagers and wanted to be a star and all of that. I actually went into the fitness industry and entered things like Miss Fitness competitions. And that included a very stringent, very strict diet. And I'd never done that kind of thing before. And so you are getting your calories down to 1,200 a day, and you're training 3 hours a day just to get this, you know, for a girl, 8% body fat, which is completely unrealistic to sustain. And so from my first competition, the minute I finished and went off stage and gorged myself on all the things I hadn't eaten for 3 months, I packed on 10 kilos, and it completely messed with my head. So that's what I can say. Like, even through the fitness industry, there's that moment where you're always constant calorie counting. You're thinking, well, I look good yesterday and now I don't look good today. So I think a lot of women, whether it's growing up as a dancer or getting into the fitness industry, can completely relate to your story.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm 52 now. So when I was growing up, Jane Fonda was it. And also Miss Calinetics. Do you remember Miss Calinetics? And so I would get up before school and do their things. But you could never be as thin as Jane Fonda. And never. And I say this in the book, that, you know, I used to write down everything I ate in my food diary. But in England, we'd have Sunday tea, and that was, you know, cake and sandwiches, and there I am with a bit of Rivita and a cheese triangle. When you're 16 or 14, and of course, that completely screwed me up. And it took me till I was 50 to get my head right. But anyway, but in terms of my history as an entertainer, it stopped there. I didn't get to audition for dancing schools. I got sent to university. And by the time I was 22, after university, I had a proper job with British Telecom. But of course, the eating disorder morphed into bulimia. Unfortunately, I read a magazine which said this was a good idea. I thought at the time, it's a fantastic idea. You can eat whatever you want and stay slim. Of course, after 30 years of it, it's not a fantastic idea. I do not recommend it. But that's what took hold. And it basically made all of my 20s just really a nightmare, really. And when you talk about the fitness industry, because I wanted to be slim still for dancing, because I discovered salsa dancing. And so finally there was a dance where you didn't have to be thin. And I got obsessed. And I got so obsessed, I found myself a Colombian dancing partner, and I won the 1992 UK Salsa Dance Championships or something.
Holy shit.
I know. But, you know, I went every night. I went to BT all day, and then I went dancing. It was wonderful. And we would go home to our cars on blistered feet.
Yes.
It was the best.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be thin. So I would get up in the morning, have my personal trainer, do his really hard circuit classes, then lift weights, then do my BT job, then cycle home, then dance all night. Of course, no one told me I had to sleep. Of course, by the age of 26, my brain goes, I have a total breakdown. and I have to return home to my parents because I can't use the phone, let alone sell one. I can't talk to anyone. I have agoraphobia. All I can do is sit in my childhood bedroom going, you know, a few expletives, what just happened? And that was the brilliant turning point. It wasn't a very happy turning point, but it was the turning point, which so many of us women know when I keep wanting to swear because I do, but I won't. So when something
but I have, like, in every episode, so
okay, I was going to say, so when the shit hits the fan,
yeah,
that's when you go, something has got to change. This is not working. And so you imagine me sitting on the edge of my childhood single bed, looking at the shut door for 3 months, going, something has gone badly wrong. What went wrong? What went wrong is that I followed everyone else's advice. Now, yes, I couldn't go to ballet school because I was too fat, but everyone said, you must get a good job, you must do this, you must do this. And I did it. No, my heart wanted to be on the stage. It's all I ever wanted. And so in that moment where I really couldn't do anything, I was like, bugger everybody else. Fuck them. I am going to be on the stage. No, I don't know how. And I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to do a damn thing until that happens. i.e., I'm not going to do anything else, listen to anyone else, do what anyone else says. I'm going to do that. And that, I was furious. And so when my lovely father said, well, why don't you get a bar job until you at least earn some money? I was like, I didn't give up a very good salary and a corporate career to get a bar job or anything else. I'm going to do this until I'm a success. So that gave me the fire, but I didn't know what to do. And I'd done juggling at university in a club. And so I said, I'm going to be a juggler. And everyone was like, you're going to be a what? I'm going to be a juggler. And they say, you can't make money juggling. I'm like, watch me. I'm going to be a juggler. And I ended up being a juggler. I married a juggler and we went around the world. And if you put Cobble Comedy Company into YouTube, or maybe you can enter it in, you can see me juggling and standing on his shoulders. I'm going to add
that into the show
juggling
notes.
fire. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to see if I can get really good and edit that into our video.
Well, I haven't managed that sort of skill. So if you can do it,
I'll
get someone I know. I'll get someone I know who can do it. We'll do it. But anyway, you can see me standing on my German husband's shoulders in Austria, going around the world, juggling fire. And on the way, I learned magic. And so, but that was why I did it. And however, the thing was that the eating disorder never went away because I wanted to be thin on stage. When I got into magic, I had this beautiful vision of me, with graceful arms, moving gracefully, looking beautiful. And if you look at nearly all the women in magic, they're all beautifully thin. I mean, unfortunately, the women that were successful in magic when I was learning it, they are all naturally thin. One was Asian, she was beautiful, naturally thin, but I was struggling still. So every time, and of course, as most women know, the moment you try to diet, it all gets more difficult. So I was doing 3 hours exercise a day, watching what I was eating. It just kept giving fire to the eating disorder. I don't know whether this is a thing, but in this year that I have not had to put on that costume, I've not had to worry on stage, I've freaking lost a kilo. And I haven't done any exercise. I mean, this is not a recommendation for health, but I have stopped exercising. I do a bit of a walk and I eat what I like, and I've lost a kilo.
Yeah. So why do you think that is? I mean, has it occurred?
In my head, right? Yeah. I'm not thinking, got to lose weight, got to be in the correct size. I've just totally relaxed around it. And that I think is the key to getting a much more healthy relationship with food.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. I mean, I would definitely say in my calorie counting days, that was my worst time. I can also look back on it and think that was not good. Here I was kind of condemning everyone that did have it, or not condemning, but being judgmental about everyone that had what is typically an eating disorder. But up in my head, I'm counting the calories of everything that's going into my mouth, which is just as bad. And now I couldn't tell you what that is.
No.
I think it comes to, your maturity around eating and food comes with just eating because you feel hungry and you know that this is nutritious and it feels good when it goes inside
Right.
your stomach and when it's inside. And now I feel like as I'm aging, and I have such a good relationship with that word. So, hence, getting into a podcast on sexy
Right.
aging. I have such a good
Yeah.
relationship with aging because what it has taught me, especially with food, and since we're talking about our relationship with food, I am like super conscious of the food that's going into my body and how it makes me feel.
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
understand that it is fuel and it helps me get through the day and I can achieve what I want to do and it helps me stay mindfully well as well. But it's interesting to be able to look at food and go, I love that food because it makes me feel good.
Sure.
It's quite a simple stuff.
You know something though, I'm laughing in my head is because last night I think I ate some hula hoops. Oh, do you know what hula hoops is? Hula hoops is an English crisp.
Yeah,
Do you have it?
I do. We do have them here, but my son, he sees them on the in the supermarket and he goes, I
Right.
want these, but he's never had them.
Yeah. So
I'm
they're
like,
my favorite crisp. I'm not really a crisp eater, but they're my favorite crisp. They're the sort of crisp your mother gave you to take on the school trip. And they're round. And as a kid, you'd put them on your finger. Anyway, because my whole life I wasn't allowed to eat hula hoops. I now eat hula hoops. And it was only a small bag, but I'm so enjoying, even though I know they're not very good for me, I'm really enjoying the relaxation around that and the fact that I'm allowing myself to. It's almost like letting that little girl eat freaking hula hoops. Now, we're not
yeah,
going to
and
eat
not
them all
getting
day.
stuff about it. Yeah.
And if you do
It's
eat them all day, I remember in lockdown, I was like, I can have hula hoops for dinner. In the first week of lockdown, I'm like, I'm on my own. No one's here. I can eat hula
yeah.
hoops. I can have 4 packets for dinner. And then you soon found actually they make you feel blah. So I get
Well,
what
I'm
you're saying.
curious, if we go back to the magic, you can just make them disappear.
Exactly. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I do my keynote speak to people, I say from that moment of being 26 and saying I'm going to be a performer to winning the World Magic Awards was 17 years. And that was 17 years of never giving up. And so I would use all the techniques in the books, all the affirmations as I was cycle, because I was cycle for hours. I would say, I am a world star of magic. I am a world star of magic. And then in the boxing class, I'd say, I'm a world star of magic. I'm a world star of magic. I would just do it constantly and constantly visualize this beautiful show where my audience were like, and the motivation was that, as adults, I never did children. I didn't have children, and I've never really been around children. So my whole motivation, I realized that adults, we're so worried all the time and we're unhappy. I think children are happier than we are. And so it was to get that adult to forget their worries for a while and just remember how magical this world really is. That was my job. And I still think it is my job. I think magician's job is to remind everyone else that you are the magician of your own life.
Mm.
That
That's
is
so
my
special.
job
I
to
mean,
remind you.
I'm sitting here, I've got goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so
That's
true though, because
true.
I'm sure lots of your listeners and watchers, we do create our own reality by how we think, by how we speak, by how we act. And therefore you're a magician. But if you do it consciously, then it's even more exciting. So yesterday in the morning, I write down what I want to manifest. If I get off that habit, my life doesn't go very well. And if I do it for 5 minutes, it goes really well. And I've just bought a little cottage in the Lake District in England. You can see the stones. These are 16th century, built in
Incredible.
50 something. They're very old. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, in all the fairy tales, there'd be like a higgledy-piggledy sign outside the cottage in the country saying the something cottage. And in my imagination, I thought the enchanted cottage. And I wrote down a picture of that in my notebook. I'm not kidding you. The doorbell rang, the postman arrived. I've got a package. I open it up and I should have got it. I've got a pink sign, because I quite like pink, called the Enchanted Cottage that my friend has sent me. And I didn't mention to her.
Wow.
So I was like, manifestation.
Yeah.
But we can all do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's not magic. That's something that we all have within us if we can tap into it, right? So, well, I mean,
Yeah.
it is magic in a way because
I'd
it's a
call
way
it real magic.
feel
It's
when it
real.
happens. Yeah, it's beautiful and
Yeah.
soulful and all of that. But
Yeah.
so I feel like this is one thing that we spoke about a bit earlier, well, last week, but it still resonates with me, is that as we do mature, our belief in ourselves becomes so
Mm,
sure, like
yeah.
the belief that you're doing what you're meant to be doing and that you
Yeah.
have this purpose, and whether it's going to make you $1 million or whether it's going to make you famous, or irrespective of those things,
Right.
even though if you're able to manifest those and stay focused, and it takes you 17 years and you get there anyway, but you do it because you do it from a really deep place of knowing, and there is no other thing that you'd rather be doing. And you and I spoke about that last week. So when I hear your story and just how you've achieved what you set out to do, it's
Mm.
just magnificent.
It's true. And I would add on this. So I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert. And once she did a talk, and then when she went home, she got a note from a woman that said, I have never had a specific dream. And when you talk about reaching a dream and I feel like, well, I've never had one. And so I think it's really important here. So that if it was your dream to be the best mother, or let's say a mother, let's leave best out. Maybe it was your dream to create a beautiful family. My mother's dream was to create a beautiful house, and she polished the parquet every morning and made it really clean so that it was a lovely home for her family. And her dream was to keep us safe. So I'm very lucky. I had a dream, and it was a very visual dream, and the world star of magic, blah, blah, in feathers. I mean, you couldn't miss me. But many other people have maybe a more subtle dream, and that's also totally precious, Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, like, you hold on to that dream and you learn the art of manifestation, whether it's journaling, whether it's
Yeah.
meditation, whatever tool it takes to help you bring that dream alive.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah, as just probably the last couple of years, even though I'm going through menopause and it kind of messes with me in lots of different ways, one thing that I can say is that I am 100% confident, and I'm not saying that in an arrogant way. I'm just 100% confident that we are doing what we're meant to be doing. And
Right.
so when I met you and we spoke last week, I felt like, whoa, I've met someone that gets
Yeah.
why she's supposed to be here, why you're
Right.
here on this earth. And
Exactly.
yeah,
But isn't it interesting right now? Because I can't work anymore. So the cruise ships are not sailing. I've not performed since February 2020, since Fiji. Um, and in England, we're still locked down. And I usually work to 1,000, 2,000 people all crammed in together. So I can't do what I did. And actually, I've been offered work back on the cruise ships, and I said no. And I told the agent it was because I'm getting a rescue dog and I want to stay home with the rescue dog. But it's not because of that. It's because I feel I should be doing something different. I've done that. I've made people laugh and all that. But now I have a really bigger sense. At the moment with COVID, everybody has suffered. Everybody has got more anxious, more fearful, the children, for God's sake. And my speciality is to talk to people. I've been scared and fearful my whole life. I've learned how to follow my joy. I've learned how finding things that make you happy changes your life, makes you more healthy, and puts you on track and gets you out of anxiety. I had to find my way out of anxiety. So now what I feel I need to do in the next 10 years at least is tell people how they can be happy, advise people how they can find their joy, because oh my God, we are so going to need it this year,
yeah,
next year.
yeah, I 1,000% agree with that.
Mhm.
And anybody that has spoken to or had a conversation with me, that word joy frequently comes up in the conversation, because I feel that that's ultimately what we want to feel on a daily basis,
Yeah.
but we are so impacted by what's happened, right? But I feel like because we focus on that and we know that that's the way you need to live, but we have all these youngsters coming through and they don't have that same focus.
Right.
So I agree.
Right.
So what's your plan?
Right. So my plan, and when you say youngsters, so I have a real memory of, so when I was in this eating disorder, desperate, basically killing myself, let's be honest. And I went to Waterstones and I would look in the book category and there was nothing. There was, all right, there was like, this is what bulimia is. And then the book said, you are killing yourself if you continue. I was like, oh, great, for fuck's sake. Did not make me happy. So I decided I wasn't going to write the book about that. I wasn't even going to tell anyone. But then I thought, I'm now healthy at the age of 50. The 20-year-old person I was, the 30-year-old person I was, I need to tell that person how to get out of this absolute trap. I absolutely need to do that. And at the time, I had told nobody. About 5 people knew this about me. Nobody knew this about me. I wasn't going to tell anyone because I thought people wouldn't book me. I thought people wouldn't like me, etc., etc. And I just thought, if I help a couple of young women, then I don't care. If people don't book me, then I don't care. And then the opposite was true. Everyone was super nice to me. Of course, no one cared whether I was or not and kept booking me. And then 70% of my female readers wrote and said that's their story too, and then gave it to their daughters. So my plan is, I said, since I'm a magician, I will find 1 million readers of Spun Into Gold. 1 million is like a magical number. If you can get 1 million of anything, then how on earth did I do it on my own power? It must have been magic. It must have been angelic help. It must have been being in the right place at the right time. It must be magic. And I'm a magician. So that's my latest trick, to find 1 million readers. And the other thing is that each time I put my compass in my life on joy, doing magic, despite the money, doing this, despite the money, going somewhere, despite all my friends saying, are you crazy? That each time I've done that, magic has fallen into place and things have happened that you couldn't have dreamed possible. My favorite quote is something like, follow your dreams and doors will open where there were only walls. You know, like there was no way that this was going to happen. There was no way that I was going to meet Elizabeth Gilbert and be on stage with her. But I was in Fiji last year because I kept following my joy. So that's what I want to tell everyone. You've got to find what makes you happy. And we are talking about dancing in the kitchen to your favorite song. We are talking about if it makes you feel happier to wear pink, freaking wear pink, dye your hair pink, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do whatever it is. If you love gardening, garden. Because in my life, whenever I've done that, then things have fallen into place. You know, get a new puppy.
Yeah.
And then I won the competitions after I got a new puppy, after I spent a full fortune on beautiful plants for my garden. So basically, I just want to tell everyone to follow their happiness, because what is life about if you're not happy? Money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happiness is the goal.
And we've looked half of it. So we get to say, for all the things that we've learnt, and we're talking about it all the time. And Ning, who was in episode 7, which launched just yesterday, so if anyone is listening to the podcast, has the exact same message as you, which is, if you want to sing, sing. If you want to write a poem, do it. If you know, like, and I think that that's one of the most amazing things about everyone that is coming on the podcast, is we are at that stage in our lives that we believe we do not have any more time to waste. You know,
really don't.
We've got all these things happening around us. Yes, it's challenging, but what we do know is deep inside us that we do not have any more time to waste on this one shot at life. And set your compass to joy and go hard on that. So I think that's
and I'm going to add something, because I have been guilty in the last year, because I was totally isolated in a cottage with just online. And so I got involved in a bit of a political thing. Basically, our government didn't give the artists hardly any money. You know, like the governments all over the world money. Well, they didn't give the artists any money, so they didn't give me any money. And so I was campaigning. I was doing a lot of PR, which actually was good for the book. But I was therefore watching the news. And this depleted me of my joy, and I started worrying and I started getting angry. I mean, righteously so, but it doesn't, righteous or not, doesn't help you. And the husband would come home and go, why are you getting so upset? And I'd say, but what this? He said, if that's true, look at you, you're getting upset. So my discipline at the moment is to absolutely turn the news off, try not to get involved in Facebook, and get out in the countryside, walk, garden, bicycle, put on music, paint, because this is what is going to save us. I mean, literally save us, because when I was watching the news more, I was getting a physical pressure on my chest, and I started getting paranoid that I was like going to get a heart attack or something. No,
Yeah.
that's anxiety through watching the news.
Yeah. No, I
Turn
agree
it
with
off.
you. Yeah.
Turn it off.
Yeah. And get out
Because
into nature.
get out in the sunshine, get out, move, eat well, do everything that you have learned by the time you're 50, 40, whatever. You know what is good for you.
Yeah.
Tonight, the husband and I are starting yoga or stretching because we're walking like two old crocs and we're very lazy about it.
You need your
Tonight.
mobility. This is the time. If you
Yeah.
can't look over your shoulder as you're driving, you need to, get down and do
Right.
some stretching. Yeah.
I can do
Right.
that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, can't.
I mean, I remember a time I would have only been like 46, 47. I'm driving along and I quickly turned my head and, like got that little pain. I'm like,
I
oh,
know.
this is where it all begins. But
Right.
I mean, I do practice yoga, and I
Yes.
find that it's also, the stretching, and not just the stretching, but the breathing and the mobility aspect of it really does help with
Yes.
a lot of things for me, mindfulness
Exactly.
and physically helps to balance out my anxiety. And I don't get a lot of it, but obviously we've all experienced it in the last,
Yeah. Yeah.
18.
This year hasn't helped. But also, what is now our goals? I want to be one of those women with long white hair up in a bun with, beautiful flowing clothes and things like that. Who,
I'll
right?
see
Who
you
can
in
get
India.
her leg, right? Yeah. Who can do the splits? I mean, that is
Yeah.
maybe not the splits, but and it's so funny because I've applied for a grant from the Arts Council, and the show I have in mind, I'm going to wear comfortable clothes for my whole career. If you look at my website, which is romanymagic.com, you can see me in
Yeah.
costumes. Do not be thinking they are comfortable.
No, they're not comfortable.
And the reason I look so lovely and slim is because I get myself in this really tight corset, 2 pairs of tights, high heels, eyelashes. And when I take that corset off, and when I used to take it off, I would have red welts.
Yeah.
And I did that because it did look beautiful. In my next show, I'm having a beautiful robe. I'm wearing flat shoes. I'm going to have a little hat. I'm going to be so comfortable, because that's what we learn when we get older.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Right.
And one of our similarities is that we obviously going back full circle in this conversation is that we were introduced through Wendy. And so I'm going to take this opportunity to ask you about your experience with perimenopause or menopausal symptoms for the listeners that do tune in, because they obviously they get so inspired by the guests that I have. But one of the things that grounds all of us and brings us up all together is the mire of menopause. So how are you going?
So let's go back to last May. I got locked in a Buddhist monastery because my husband's into the Buddhist. So I got locked into the monastery, and there's a long story, but I'm gardening. I'm not gardening, I'm heaving bushes around. And in my mind, it's a workout. But at night, I'm having hot flush after hot flush after hot flush. I ache all over. And when I gave up that gardening for 3 months, I returned to my cottage and I can't move. I can't, everything hurts. I'm just lying on the sofa, got anxiety through the roof, and the scales are going up. So my happy weight, 66 kilos. Anything below that, woohoo. Above that, the costume starts to not fit. Now I'm 68 kilos and it's freaking going up. Even though I'm cycling, I'm in a right old panic. And somehow, thank you, angels, thank you, God, Wendy's advert comes down on my Facebook feed. And I watch a 2-hour seminar and I'm like, oh, this is it. I pay up straight away. And I'm so relieved. And I start doing what she tells us. And within, a month, 2 months, I am a new woman. Yes, it doesn't go away, does it? And I'm still having hot flushes, but the aches and pains are going. But more than that, I'm in the Facebook community. Everyone else is saying the same thing. And I realize that what I'm suffering from is not, God knows what, I'm going to die, but the menopause. And I really put it into action. And the best thing was that Wendy talks about getting up in the morning, going for a walk. stop exercising at first because your whole body is so inflamed, which mine totally was after 30 years of 3 hours a day extreme exercise. Just go for a walk. What a relief. So I just went for a walk for an hour on the beach. Suddenly, not suddenly, my weight starts plateauing. And now, a year on from absolutely doing everything that Wendy says, apart from the hula hoops, and maybe a bit of chocolate. But quite a few, you know what? Quite a few things that we're not going to tell Wendy about, but I do everything else that she tells us. All the food, the exercise, everything. And now look, I can put on my costume easily. I'm a kilo less than my 66 happy weight. Yeah. I it doesn't go away, but I'm so much happier. And I have tools. That's the thing. So if the inflammation goes up, if the sleeping gets worse, then cut out the chocolate, cut out the hula hoops, up the water, up all the vegetables. And so I'm so grateful for her. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. I've definitely heard so many amazing things, and I'm so grateful that I have that connection with her, because I learned from her. I've learned a lot and been able to apply a lot personally as well. So yeah,
and I think it's crazy that no one else, I didn't find anyone else that has this information and is doing all the research. I mean, as you know, as a sports professional, I had a personal trainer. I had a personal trainer pre-COVID twice a week. He knew nothing about menopausal women.
No,
it didn't work. Apart from me losing all my money, it didn't work. And so Wendy has all this information about what we need as menopausal women, what we need to exercise, what we need to eat. And it's fascinating and so useful. So I would just, I'm going to advertise Wendy here. If you are not on her program and you are menopausal, premenopausal, get on her program. Join the Facebook community. We're really fun. But just do it, because you just have to.
Oh, that's an awesome endorsement for Wendy, and of course I'm highly in praise of her as well. And I want to finish off tonight's interview with just my own personal endorsement for your book, Spun Into Gold. And we are going to help you, our community are going to help you get to 1 million readers.
I want to show you the front of it, because it makes me laugh, because I'm the person that I'm the person that I can't wear white jeans. If I put on white jeans, I will drop tomatoes down them immediately. But I made the book white and gold. It's red on the back and it's got a plastic cover. but it makes me laugh. But it's got, and this, I took this. This is the picture of one of my costumes.
Oh,
you see,
fabulous.
So you can imagine why I wanted to be slim for that. But
move over, Naomi Campbell.
Right. Well, luckily the designer gave me really long legs. But what I love about it is people say that after they read it, they believe that the world is a more magical place, and they're more inspired and motivated to find their joy, which is like, okay, that's my job
beautiful.
Done. But thank you for telling your listeners.
Done. Thank you so much. It's just been awesome to spend some time with you, and I know that our listeners and viewers are going to be so inspired. And I'm going to push pause, but you and I can keep talking.
Exactly, we can. Exactly.